Pints of Laughter was very kindly sponsored by All Truck and Trailer Parts UK. Cheers.
Fabio, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We're delighted to have you as our guest. By way of introduction, you're the British Heavyweight Champion. You're the WBA Continental Heavyweight Champion. And your fight record so far is 60-0, 15 by way of knockout. Isn't it true to say, however, you're just very lucky that you haven't come up against me?
That might be a factor. So I'm doing my best to avoid you so far, but I want to kind of maintain my record for as long as possible. So if you...
I think I misread the heavyweight rules. I don't quite think this is what they intended when they came up with it.
Well, there's no upper limit, so you're fine. You can carry on for as long as you want.
I wasn't expecting this start. Go on.
So presumably when you were a kid, when did you first think, I'll tell you what, I'd quite like to be a boxer? That didn't happen until later in life for you, did it?
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Because a lot of boxers that are about today, they've achieved quite good things. They started from very, very young as kids, early teens, even before their teens. Or they've got some sort of history in it where their dad boxed, their brother boxed, someone around their family, or granddad, whoever. Whereas my kind of route into it, or my initial start, was one very late and a little bit obscure as well in kind of the way that I got into it. I didn't start boxing or even pick up a pair of gloves until I was 20 years old. So I was already a lot later to a start than obviously a lot of these people that have already had their amateur fights and had probably, by the time I started, there was a lot of guys that had 100 odd amateur fights already, and they'd been going since they were 10, 11, 12, however. And I'm jumping in a bit late. And then also, like I say, they've come from very either established amateur clubs to give them solid foundations and bring them through. And then they've gone through to amateur competitions like championships. And some of them have gone right across the world to compete and things like that. And I've just kind of come out of this left view out of nowhere, out of little old Ipswich. And then kind of just found there was what you'd call a white collar gym, which is a bit of a different kind of, it's not different in the sense, it's just not, the amateur board don't look over it the same way they would kind of a standard amateur club. So it's always kind of looked at with a bit of a side eye, to be honest. People look at it a bit differently, like it's kind of like shunned and almost like people. You say white collar to a lot of people, and they think like it's almost like a pub brawl. Like you think you're just going to go out in the car park and people are just going to have a scrap. When it's not. I'd like to think I'm some sort of testament to how good it can be, and if you want to obviously stay focused and keep on track with it. So yeah, I've had a bit of an interesting start to my boxing career, but I've tried to make the most of it, anyways.
I'm always pretty interested. Did you have many scraps at school?
No, I had.
Have you seen the size of it?
That was obviously a factor. In school and whatever, I was the largest, if not one of the largest kids in school, especially for my age group or however. So I didn't really find myself in too many altercations like that. I can only think of distinctly 2 times where I ever got into a fight, but they weren't really. I threw a couple of punches and the fight was over. So,
well, Simon and I went to private school, didn't we? Many years apart. If we had a altercation, it was fencing and pistols at dawn, wasn't it?
I was going to say.
Actually, talking about that at school, those were the days where we did do boxing in the younger years.
Oh yeah, of course.
And my record was 2-1-1.
Not bad.
One not. I didn't get knocked out, but I think it broke my nose, and I didn't have to do it ever again.
It surprised you that I had one fight and I had a tooth knocked out in about 10 seconds. That was me done.
I think it's fair to say it wasn't our natural calling, boxing. And it's how we've both of us have shaped as we have.
I've gone a different way for it.
Sorry about that. So, just incidentally, that scrap you had then, what was that over? A girl or was it?
It was over. So there was
He's looking uncomfortable.
This is going to be good.
It was a dispute over something that happened. So I was in school at the time. So I was in school, and my best friend at the time had like another mutual mate of ours round to like play Xbox, PlayStation, whatever. And while that third friend was there, or third person was there, they stole some money off my friend. And he came to me and told me, and then I went and spoke to the guy, and he shoved it off and said, "No, of course I didn't." Like, rah, rah, rah. And I was like, I know you did. Like, I know that, like, it's clear that you did. Like, I know that happened. And he just said, like, because this was over text or whatever at the time as well. So I was talking like that, and he was saying, like, look, stop accusing me like I didn't, blah blah blah. And he said, if you want to carry on, like, next time I see you, we'll settle it like that. And I was like, okay, fine. If you want to go down that route, we'll do that. So
I'd have turned my phone off.
I don't know, it's like summer's day or whatever, I'm walking home from the park or something like that, or wherever else, and I see him, and he's actually now getting off a bus, and I say, like, I'm walking towards him in the bus and whatever, and saying, okay, look, you said what you said, I'm here, let's go now. And then
it was like Forrest Gump.
It was no, it was kind of, but a bit different. He was like, no. He said, like, I'm not in the mood, I'm not today, like, it's not the right time. And I was like, it's not the right time, I mean, it's not scheduled, we're not doing this, like, off a clock, like, you said, when you see me, I'm here, let's go. And he was like, no, and then so much so that he banged on the door of the bus window, and got the driver to let him back on, so he could then get off however many stops further away from me. So I wasn't going to chase him down, I was quite calm in it, and I was like, okay, fine, whatever, so you're not really up for it. So I go home. And then that evening, like later that afternoon, kind of evening, sitting in my front room and just watching TV or whatever, and I hear a smash, and then I sit there for a second, and I'm like, someone must have like dropped a plate or a glass or something like that. And then I heard another one, and then somehow, I don't know how, but my brain knew exactly what it was. Like after one, it's funny because I remember it so clearly that, like, my brain was like reasoning it. Like the first smash was like, oh no, it's just like a glass, plate, whatever else. And the second one, my brain was like, no, we know what that is. One of my downstairs windows was being smashed. So they threw two like bricks, stones, whatever, through the bottom of my window. And I say they. So by this point, the kid that I was initially having this dispute with had went and got his dad as well. So his dad had helped him with this. Because he knew where I lived. So they'd come to my house, chucked a couple of bricks through my windows, smashed my windows. So where my house was, I lived right by. My house was like there, and there was an alleyway to the left. So it was like almost a quick escape route. Yeah. So I run out of my house and I look to my left and I see two people running down the alley, and like it's straight and then it's a left alley as well. So it's a turn, so you can run around a corner. And I literally catch the last like glimpse of them as they get around the corner. So obviously I run to the end and chase them. And then they get to the end of the alley and get onto another road, and then they just start walking. Like they didn't do anything. Like it was all just like, oh no, we're just out for a stroll. And I'm like, by the time I've caught up to them, I'm like a few steps behind them, whatever, and I'm shouting at them, and they're just walking and ignoring me. And it's getting me more and more angry because they're completely just like pretending like, one, they didn't do nothing, and like nothing's happened. So that's where I start, like, I run and just get involved basically. So I run after the my plan was to, well, I say plan, but I assessed the situation. I thought, well, let's take out the biggest one first. So I went for the dad first. Yeah. He went down.
How old were you at this point?
5.
I was 16 at this point. So I went for the dad first. He's down. Then I had the son. Was doing whatever I was doing to him, and then I saw at the corner why the dad was now getting back up.
When you say doing what I was doing to him, that worries me.
Yeah, that sounds like slightly concerning. Yeah. I was practicing my boxing skills.
Okay, yeah, very good.
before I'd ever started. And then I was at the corner of my eye, I saw the dad getting back up. So I lumped the son one to put him down. Then went back to the dad and carried on practicing my boxing skills with him. And at this point, the son had run off and left his dad. So it was just me and the dad going at it. And I was getting a lot better at the situation, to whereas I was over the dad and he was on the floor, and we'd ended up in someone's garden or someone's front garden or something. And the person came out and was like, "What's going on?" And I was like, I'm quite funny because I don't like lose my, like, I don't get the red mist. I don't get like over anger. I just can't see anything turning like a Hulk rage kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm always quite switched on. So like, while I'm doing what I'm doing, this guy and the old man at the house comes out and was like, "What's going on?" And I like turn. I'm like, "Oh, sorry, mate. I didn't mean to apologise." Like I completely like swap from doing this to like, "Oh no, apologies. Sorry, I didn't mean it."
As you got the dad by the throat.
You're
apologising.
No, that's literally like I've got one pinned and I'm just talking to this old man like it's normal, like it's a casual evening.
Where was the young lad?
He'd run.
Oh, really?
He'd run, left his dad. Long gone. Long gone.
Don't
Love it.
And then unlucky, complete bad luck from me is that while all this is going on, just we're on like a house that's on the main road, whatever, and just slowly drives past. There's a police car while I'm over just laying into this geezer. So that was an interesting 24 hours after.
Is that why every time we walk down the football, all the policemen go, "Right, Fab"?
That's
You're
one
right,
of
no,
the
no, you're right, Ollie.
No, I'm all right. I'm with him.
Yeah, that might be one of the reasons. But yeah, that was my introduction. I say introduction. That was one of the more notable times that I ever got into a fight. But they were few and far between, to be honest.
Yeah.
I wasn't that type of person to always want to get stuck into a fight. I never really felt the need. Like it was always, if necessary. Like I was never denying one. Like if someone said they wanted to, I was like, okay, I'm more than happy to go.
To be honest, Fab, I've always been the same.
Yeah, I've heard.
Not really.
It's quite interesting. You said you didn't get the red mist there. Is that something that happens now in your professional life?
No, it's
Do you
something
need
I've
the red
maintained.
mist?
I think it depends. It's fighter dependent. Some people it works well for them. Other people, like myself, I prefer to be more switched on, tuned into the moment, as opposed to just going for it. And I think in boxing, that's what boxing teaches you as well, is to be. I know people like it's at the end of the day it's fighting, but it's so much more than that. There's so much more of a thought process that goes into it. It's not just I'll get in, you get in, or swing it out and see who comes out on top. There's so many more levels to it, which I think you're not able to access if you're just in that kind of red mist rage mode.
But you do have that. I mean, obviously I've been to a couple of your fights and things like that. Once you get hit, the eyes go.
Yeah,
and then suddenly, the Gorman fight, for instance, he did all right in the first round, and then he hit you, and then suddenly it's done.
Yeah.
It's over. Your eyes are gone. It's
something that a lot of people say to me, like when they watch my fights or they watch me, is they say that there's like a switch in me that like think 1 minute it's all going relatively normal, casual, whatever, and then it just changes gears. And I think that is something in me as well. But it's more of a double down in the like focus thing where I'm like, okay, here we go, switch on. So this, and everything starts. My brain kicks in and like double gear and starts moving everything a lot quicker, as opposed to me just like going and then just start letting off punches. So that's more so for me kind of how it works. But I do have a little bit of a I just have an instinct of when I can see you and I think, okay, cool, I can get you now.
Yeah.
So for someone like me, I don't know a huge amount of boxing, I'll be honest, as you all know, because we chatted before. Ollie does, but I don't.
He says he does.
So for people
I
like
pretend I know
me,
everything.
we don't appreciate the strategy, if you like, that comes into boxing. Because people like me might think it's just a question of just going to smack the other guy more than he smacks you. But there's more to it, isn't there? About everything.
Yeah, there's so much more to it. You're fighting people from all over the world who have trained differently. They've got different skills. Some are bigger, some are smaller, some are faster, some are stronger. So it's not a it's not a one size fits all kind of thing, as much as it may seem. Like, it's not just hop in and see if you can beat that other person, because you have to, especially something I've learned a lot more now in these past couple of years or so with the new additions to my team that I've added, is that there's so much more intricacies to it that, like, you really detail on what this person does when you're reviewing them, looking over them in preparations for a fight. Like, what habits do they have? What things do they do regularly? Okay, cool. So how can I counteract that? What situations do I not want to be in that may feed better into their skills? What situations do I want to be in that they're uncomfortable in, that fit better for me? And trying to take hold of that fight. And it's like a tug of war almost, because once you're in there on the night, they've done a similar build up to you. So they've looked at you and looked at your pros and cons and thought, okay, cool, I can get him here. I shouldn't do this. Shouldn't get caught in this situation. So it's almost like a technical tug of war / chess match where you're trying to take control of the fight from them. They're trying to take control of the fight from you. And once, like, whoever kind of is tugging away more and has got more control of the situation can then obviously dominate the fight and win. So there's a lot that goes into it.
Is it like football in the last few years, the use of data and sports science? In football, it's just immense, as we know. There's huge teams, aren't there, just analysing every kick of the ball, every movement on the pitch. Is that something that's come into boxing in the last few years? Has it technically become much easier to assess an opponent?
I think that's the thing. It's definitely been a development over the last kind of few years or so. The more kind of technical side, by literally meaning like technical, like reviewing, even reviewing things like how many punches people throwing around, things like that, are like all very small details. You can review that on yourself to check your punch output. You can review it on your opponent to be like, okay, if they're throwing this many punches, but then you assess how long they can maintain that for. Where's their drop off point? Because
so you go into a ring and know, and against an opponent, you'd have a good idea that, for example, in the fourth round, if he was ever to get that far, he might start leaving himself a little bit open on his left side. His left hand is
things like that. Yeah, things along them lines. Is that the thing is with fighters, with boxing, is that ultimately everyone does have base habits that they revert to. So whether they're good or bad, you need to initially find the bad ones and find scenarios where you can pull them out. So if you find out that someone's uncomfortable when you've got them under pressure in the corner of the ring, you try and maneuver the fight to your fight doesn't necessarily start until you get him in that uncomfortable position. So everything you're doing in the middle of it is working towards that key point of where you can be the most effective. So everything you're doing is edging them towards that corner, the way you're moving them around the ring, the nothing shots that you're throwing at them that are kind of empty shots, just to slightly move them further where you need them, shuffle them, step in the right place, make sure the distance between you is nice and even, how you need it. And once you've kind of, it's funny, it's like as soon as you get to that point, there's a trigger and it's like, okay, boom, now we work. We've got it, everything where we need, everything's all aligned, go. And it's not like go crazy, but it's once you've kind of hit this like green box, you've checked it and gone, okay, that's done. Now we start to work properly from here. So it takes a lot of mental power, because all the while you're in the ring, there's a lot going on. There's lights, there's cameras, there's a crowd, there's chanting, there's noise, there's your corner shouting, there's their corner shouting, there's them in front of you obviously trying to throw punches at you. So you're all trying to, it's weird that you have to kind of shut down a lot of senses in your brain to really just hone in and focus on this one person in front of you and obviously come out with the best of your abilities.
So in your 16 fights, who would you say was your hardest? Because you've had a couple of, I'm sure they picked him out of Wetherspoons and said, who wants to fight? Because a couple of people have dropped out, haven't they? But you fought some decent people as well, obviously.
I think the hardest one for me, probably, the hardest one that I found was, it was a guy named Eric Molina. So he was a former 2-time world title challenger. So he tried to fight for a world title twice. Was unsuccessful, but he'd obviously fought at a very high level.
He did beat Simon at the prep school, didn't he?
He was the one who broke your nose.
He's the one that broke your nose.
Yeah.
He He'd fought for a world title twice, been unsuccessful, but obviously competed at a very high level. He's a little bit older, maybe 35, 36, something like that. Quite a big guy as well, and just knew his stuff, like knew how to handle himself in a ring in a sense that he was comfortable in most scenarios. Like he had a very set game plan. He knew what he was doing. He knew what he wanted to get from the fight. He knew his plan was working to a T for him, to be honest. And I was it was my 11th fight. So still very fresh for me, still very new. It was in the middle of the pandemic, and we went to Gibraltar to do the show and have a fight.
Did you wear a mask?
In the ring, yeah. So on the night, it was I was chief support, so that means you're one under the main event. So that was my first time being chief support as well. So I had quite a bit of pressure on me. So I really wanted to impress and like make it like a thing and not show off, but like
make it a statement.
Yeah. Because there would have been a lot of eyes on me because of the position I was on the card and the card being in the middle of the pandemic. So no one really have anything else to do but watch TV. So there was a lot on it, and he was just way more experienced than me. He was way more crafty with what he was doing, the way he was getting around the ring and whatever else. And he was just almost lulling me into a false sense of security throughout the fight. And I was getting shots off, and there was a few like moments where it caught me in funny positions and I wasn't really ready and whatever else. I remember he hit me to the body, and I like if you get hit to the body and it's relatively clean, there's nothing you can do but make a little noise. You do a little, but you try and hide it. So that's why you're trying to like and just hold it. But obviously, when you're in a ring, you're this far from each other, so he can hear you or see your face, or you can't help but like slowly just like try and keep your elbow down and just not thinking. And if someone sees that in you, they're just gonna go at it. And I remember he caught me one, and it was like pretty solid, and I was like, oh, okay. And then you register that they see as well. Like it's something about someone's eyes that can tell you, like they're looking at you going, I saw that, and you're like, oh no, here we go. And then he steps on you and tries to get you out of there, and I got out of that situation. And then in the 6th or something round, he was quite like defensive, so I wasn't really getting involved too much. I was backing up and circling around the ring, and I was chasing him. And it was getting on my nerves, and I was like, because in my head I was thinking, I'm looking bad here. Like, he's not really engaging. Not so much I'm looking bad, but the fight's not particularly fun. Like, it's not good if I was a fan watching this, I'd be a bit like, what's going on here? So I was really trying to press the action, press the fight, get on him. And I was really walking him down loads, but there's a strategic way to walk someone down in boxing, and there's just a kind of dumb, naive way to do it. And I was doing it the latter, where I just happened to, I was outside of kind of distance, and I just lunged. I lunged in, and he just threw a big right hand and just turned it over on me and completely turned my head, like spun my head. So I looked from left to right, and then I was like, I got clocked pretty sharp, and then I started taking steps back, and it's the same thing. He's like noticed he's caught me clean, so he's pressured me, and had me backed up against the ropes, and was just unloading punches, which some were getting through, some weren't. I was like surviving. And then the same thing you say, there's like a little trigger in me that just goes, I remember it vividly. I was there like kind of dodging, weaving, getting hit with some, my head was going, and I was like, is this what we're going to do then? You just going out like this then, Fab? Are you just going to let this happen and just fold over? And I was like, all while getting punched, having this conversation in my head. And then I was like, all right, cool. If we're going to go out, then at least go out like fighting. Like, so I was like, we're just going to go punch for punch and see who comes out on top. So I just started unloading punches myself. And then I got 2 or 3 quite big ones through. And then next thing I know, by the time I looked up, he was on the floor. And I was like, oh, okay, great. And I was like out of breath. I was a little bit hurt, and my head was rocking a bit. And like, you go stand in a neutral corner when the other person's on the ground, so you allow them 10 seconds to get up, as counted by the ref. And I remember being in the corner looking at him going, don't get up. Don't you dare get up. Don't get up. I am done for.
Yeah.
Please don't get up.
Must be a really nice feeling though when they don't get. I mean, you didn't get up when you got knocked out.
So let's talk about your upbringing, because you had an interesting childhood, one that many kids today experience, in so much as your parents split up when you were 2, I think.
Yeah.
So at 2, you presumably can't remember that.
No.
2-year-old.
No.
Your earliest memories would be presumably your dad having left the scene, or how does that sort of feel now? I mean, how do you look back at that time?
So yeah, my dad left when I was about 2. Like I said, I don't really, I don't remember that. It's funny because I don't have any memories of me, my mum, my dad. I don't have, because I was so young when everything happened. I don't actually have any solid memories of that. But my stepdad, like I say, for all intents and purposes, is like someone I view as my dad. He's been around since I was about 6 or 7, and him and my mum been together ever since. So 25 years or so now. So for all intents and purposes, he's the person that I view as my dad. And me and my dad have had a on-off relationship, but like kind of been a bit back and forth in certain situations and things like that. Like he wasn't, when I first ever started boxing, he wasn't a fan of it at all. Wasn't, not to say impressed by it, but he wasn't happy with it. I remember when I spoke to him about it, and he definitely wasn't supportive of it. He basically said like, well, yeah, okay, you can do that for fun, but when are you going to get a real job, kind of thing? Mm-hmm. And I was trying to explain like, no, this is going to be my job. Like, this is what I'm going to do. And he was like, he was very academic minded. So he wanted me to he wanted me to go to uni or whatever and get a very academic heavy kind of job. And it just wasn't for me, to be honest. So our relationship has been a bit kind of strained from that over time. We've had ups and downs.
He went to America, right? Is that right?
Yeah, so he lives in America as well. So he's lived in New York since I was a kid. Since obviously he first ever left, he left and went there. So obviously there's a lot of distance between us as well. So growing up as a kid, I would spend the 6 weeks holiday there, like the summer holidays. Okay. I would spend the whole time over there with him. And then as I got older and older, that time would decrease because I was less and less interested. I didn't want to, basically. There was times where I didn't go at all. There was space of like years in between where we kind of saw each other and things like that, and then it's just got to a point where it's quite disjointed now and just there's not really much communication. And I've got to a point where I'm older, I've got the base family that I need around me. I don't need anything extra added in on the side for me. So it's it was a difficult one initially for me to kind of work out and fathom and kind of figure out how to get through that. But now I'm on the back end of it and it's all working.
As ever, we'd like to thank our main sponsor, All Truck and Trailer Parts UK.
And also to our secondary sponsors, Longfields Insurance and Hudson Signs. Without you guys, this wouldn't be possible, so thanks very much.
Now you've become British Heavyweight Boxing Champion. Have you been in touch since then, in so much as has he changed his views about whether this is the right way for you to go?
Yeah, so that's the funny thing, isn't it? Is that now it's all very celebratory and you're doing so well and so, he tells his friends and other people and stuff that look, my son's doing this and that and blah blah blah, and it's all fun and games now that I've achieved a certain level of success and I've got some accolades to show for. But in the build-up, it was very dismissive and not.
But it's quite interesting, and it, from what was obviously a terrible time went for your mother when you were 2. But actually, those two, it's helped you in 2 ways. One, because your stepfather has become so supportive and brought you up the way you are. And I'm not being sycophantic here, but you've been brought up really well. You're very well spoken and you're very polite when I meet you around town and everything. So that's one thing, but also that's driven you, what your father was saying to you when you started your career. I guess that's kind of a driver.
Yeah, I think I was
wrong.
I was fortunate. Well, I say fortunate, but I had two drives. I had my mum and my stepdad being very supportive, and me wanting to make them proud and wanting to do well for them, and kind of wanted to repay that faith and that support of they believed in me. So I want to show that I can do what I said I was going to do. And then on the other side as well, like you say, kind of trying to prove him wrong by saying, okay, cool, well, you don't think I can do it, I'll show you, which has always been a very strong staple of my kind of my personality or of my attitude towards a lot of things. The second someone says, I don't really think that's good for you, I don't really think you can do that, I don't think you should do that, however, and if I believe it's best for me, then best believe I'll show you.
Resonates with you.
Exactly. I mean, we've had conversations in this very big argument, haven't we, about people saying you can't do something. You know, I'm of the same ilk, because if somebody says I can't do something, I'll do everything possible.
Yeah, to show you that I can. I remember that being one of our first conversations.
Yeah, and it's people underestimate how much that does drive you, because there's no bigger driver than somebody saying you can't do something.
Yeah.
When you know you can. It's so yeah, no, good on you.
No, it's massive.
So that the stable home relationship with your stepdad and everything like that, but you won't mind me saying at school you weren't exactly a model student. And would it be a stretch to say you're in danger of going off the rails a little bit?
There was a strong possibility, yeah. And don't get me wrong, that overspilled into my home life as well. Like I wasn't a model child either, in terms of being a model son, and that's something that I developed over time. Of kind of once I reined myself in, school was, I was never like we said in the beginning, I was never like particularly aggressive or nasty or anything like that at all. I was never getting into really like fights or anything like that. I was never shouting, screaming, ranting, raving. I was very opinionated, very strong-willed, strong-minded, and if I didn't want something or if I didn't want to do something, there's not really much you can do to get me to do it. So if I didn't want to do the work that you set, I'm not doing it. If I didn't want to sit quiet in your class, I wasn't doing it. And I didn't really care for the consequences either. I didn't care if he was going to kick me out. I didn't care if I failed that exam or whatever else. It wasn't fussed by me. I was very immediate-minded that this is what I want. The ABC consequences are irrelevant. Whatever follows after it is irrelevant. I was very short-minded going through school. It was just on the immediate, this is what I want to do. I don't want to do what you've said. I'm going to do my own thing.
It is easier when you're 6'5", though.
Well, I was only 6'2" in school, so you know.
Yeah. But what was it at that stage? So we're talking about when you were 14 to 16 years old, that sort of period. Did you have any idea what you wanted to do? You just didn't want to do school.
I did, yeah. Well, I had an idea of what I thought I wanted to do. So I thought that I'd always really enjoyed my initial thought was what I wanted to be, because I remember we had this guy come into school and he was some sort of like guest speaker. I can't really remember, but he would like ask you like, what do you want to be and everything. And I remember saying I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I do remember that vividly. Going through school was like I always wanted to, like silly things, but I always wanted to wear a suit. I wanted that to be my day to day, wearing a suit, going to work and have like meetings and make like business calls on the phone and like have emails to send and things like that. All those very like basic mundane things. To me in school they seemed very like cool and like glamorized almost.
It's all right until the suit doesn't fit.
That's happened to me many times.
And then when I got out of school, I finally got into a job like that. I was working as a recruitment consultant, and so I did all those things. I had like meetings. I wore suits to work, and I was sending emails and making business calls and sales calls and things like that. And it became very like a short-lived thing where I was like, oh, this wasn't what this was not what I thought it was. Like I don't know what it was. It might have been that job specifically or however, but I remember a point of just being like, I don't really think this is for me. Like I don't think this is my cup of tea. As I would have thought all the way through school, was like, this is what I wanted to do. This is what I wanted to do, because I never even like I said, I didn't do boxing until really late, so that was never a consideration. I was always very athletic in school. Played football, played rugby, played dodgeball, played like whatever games there were to play in school. I played them all, and was pretty good at them all. But I never
you were
really
on the
thought.
books at Ipswich, weren't you? You were on the books at Ipswich for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, but that's another testament to kind of my attitude then as a kid. Like,
Yeah.
I never thought that it would have been great if someone could have pulled me aside and gone, Fab, you can actually like make something out of this. If you want to
Stop punching the centre forward.
yeah. If you want to stop messing around and booting the ball at your coach or whatever, then maybe you can like do something about this. This could turn into a real job, something serious for you. But again, my mentality then was, I don't want to do that. I just want to play football. I don't want to do like I was obviously when I was a younger kid, I was in the academy for Ipswich Town, so they were doing drills and doing specific like practice scenarios and setting things up, and I was the kid like 12, 13 looking around going, I want to do this. Like, I just want to play a game. Like, just stick us in teams, get a game going. Let me run around, kick the ball. And like I say, my time there was quite short lived. I remember I was there for a few months or so, and they obviously let me go because I just wasn't like. There'd be times where like the coach was got all the kids gathered around to explain to them what's going on. I'm just off in the corner just doing keepy ups or kicking the ball against like the door or the wall or whatever, just not engaged because I had already pre-decided, I'll listen to whatever you're saying, just I'll run around with the ball and do what I want to do whenever I want to do it.
There's a bit of a common thread here. So from that first time on the football pitch, not really wanting to listen to the coach, from being at school, not really wanting to pay attention to your teachers, to wanting to be an entrepreneur, working for yourself, not having a boss, to starting in work and then realising actually there's somebody telling you what to do at the end of the day. So is that a common thread in your psyche that actually you want to do something yourself, you don't want to work for anyone else?
Yeah, I think that's a common theme with me is that I don't like being, well, it's a very obvious common theme that I don't like being told what to do. Like, even if I'm, it's funny,
I will never tell you what to do, just get that straight.
Even if I'm about to do something. I remember being as like a kid and I'd go to like clear up or something. And I'm like, make sure you clear that up. And in my head, I'm like, now I have to do it. And then I'd be like, I don't want to do it anymore. Now you've just told me to do that. Like, I was going to do it and now I don't want to just because of the simple fact that you've just told me to do it. I don't know.
So what would be the best way to get a younger Fabio Wardley to do something? How would I tackle you? If I was your teacher, what would get
That's
the best,
a great
how would I
question,
get
to be
the best
honest.
out of it?
Even though I don't think I would know. It had to get me to do something when I was a kid.
I mean, not just doing something obvious like giving you something you'd like to do.
No matter the competition was always a big one for me. So no matter what the task was, if I had someone to compete against and if I could go, I beat you kind of thing.
It's only the way to do it is to say you can't do it.
That's probably another one.
Yeah.
That's probably another one. If like my teachers went, don't worry about that, Fab. We know you can't do that exam, so you don't have to do it. I'd be like, give it here. Like, I'll do it. Like, it's in some way or another. So if you would have had to make me prove a point in some way, like I say, whether that be competition against someone else, saying I bet that person will do it better than you, faster than you, whatever, or just completely removing it as an option and going, no, we don't think you can do it anyway, then those probably were the two best ways to get me to do something when I was a kid, at least.
So did you did your GCSEs, as they were then? They are GCSEs still, aren't they? I get confused. I did GCSEs. Did you do your GCSEs at school?
So yes, my GCSEs are funny because they're quite telling. That I passed everything. There's nothing I failed. I got C. My C was the lowest thing I got, so I passed everything.
So did I on my CV.
But I only exceeded in the things I wanted to do. So I had I got an A star in ICT, which is computing. I got a B or an A in business. I got a B or an A in media, things like that. Those things, the things you can, if you look at my report, you'll be like, oh, Fab's interested in this, because those are the 3 or 4 areas where he doubled down, as opposed to everything else is just, I'll get over the line, C, enough to get me through, and then everything else was A's or B's, depending on if I was interested in it or not. But I finished all of my GCSEs slightly by the skin of my teeth as well, because I got kicked out of school for the last couple of months of school because.
What have you done?
What did I do? I think it was a combination. It was a combination of a few things.
Laying out the geography teacher.
It was at that point where you were at the back end of like, you're in the last year of school, and the last few months of school as well. And you don't necessarily even need to be there almost. You're just kind of going through the motions now. You've done most of your tests, most of your exams, whatever. You're just kind of in them last bits of time. So the teachers knew this, and I guess I knew this as well. So I was probably even worse in those last few months of not paying attention, not doing things than I should have been. And then it was something really small. I think at school we just got these like new gates, and I like dumb as well. Most self-incriminating thing to do is like I wrote my name on it, I scratched my name into it.
Yeah,
like with
really sensible.
I don't know, I was at the front like waiting for my mates or something, and I was just like scratching my name into it. And obviously a teacher had seen, looked, and
it'd have been alright if you'd have been called Dave.
Yeah.
There aren't many Fabios in the
and
school.
obviously a few days later I got pulled up for it, and
was this you? What makes you think that?
I was like, but at that point I didn't care either. I was like, yeah, of course it's me. Like, it's my name. No, I did it, yeah. And he was like, well, basically saying like, you're in a lot of trouble, you're going to get expelled. And I was like, okay, but I hope you're all pulling up the other people, because there's about 7 or 8 other names on there as well. And that was my key point really. And then we ended up arguing because they wasn't, to me, I felt annoyed that I was being singled out, that there was a bunch of other names on there and I was the only one getting pulled on it. So that led to an argument, which then obviously led to me being kicked out. Again, this is probably, again, testament to what we're saying about you. I will do what I want to do, and also if you tell me I can't do something, then I'll double down and do it. So I got kicked out of school, but I would go back even though I was kicked out for specific lessons that I needed to finish. Like I had like 2 lessons or so of computing I needed to finish, maybe like a lesson or 2 of business as well that I needed to finish my like coursework or whatever it was. So I'd obviously been kicked out, but I'd go back into class just for those like lessons or stuff. And to be fair to the teachers that did see me like just going back into class, they were just like, fair enough. Like,
so were you at Chantry or Stoke? Chantry. Do you go back there now?
I haven't been back since. No, I haven't been back since.
What would you do if the school rang up and said, look, we know what happened to you here, but you changed your life around or whatever?
I'm not sure how I'd feel.
You want to go back?
Any chance you can buy us a new gate? Still got your name on it.
Well, they've ripped the whole school down and started again now, so they've got a brand new fresh school compared to when I was there. I don't know. I probably would. I probably feel a bit begrudged, but then also I wasn't the best student, so it wasn't I'd probably feel a bit like, oh well, like no one really thought I was going to achieve much, like, because I remember a good friend of mine, one of my best friends through school, so they bumped into so in school, me and my friend, we were best friends, but we were also quite mischievous. He was a little bit less than me, but I was a bit more, but he was actually quite small and I was quite tall, so I always got picked up for a lot of stuff more than he did. But 9 times out of 10, if we were doing something, we were doing it together or whatever else. And I remember him telling me not long ago, he bumped into one of my teachers not long ago, and they were asking him like how he was, and obviously they remembered that me and him used to be best friends through school. Like, so they were talking to him like, oh, so how's Fab getting on? Is he in prison or is he? And my mate was like, what are you on about? And she was like, oh, you know, just thought, I didn't know kind of how he ended up or what he done. And he was like, then he explained everything too. He was like, no, he's boxing now, he's on TV, he's won this, he's won that, he's doing this, he's doing that. And they're like, oh, she's doing really well then. And he's like, yeah, like, what are you on about? Like, and yeah, I remember him calling me and I was like, that's so like a typical viewpoint of how to think it. Like, oh, Fab's obviously must be in prison or doing something else or ended up doing this, that and the other. So, yeah, to go back, I might feel a little bit, I might have a slight sour taste in my mouth, but I'm probably, if I'd thought about it properly, I'd get over it.
What about younger kids in general? So, you know, as I say, you could be quite an influence on young people now who might be on the wrong side of the tracks or, you know, in danger of doing that because you've kind of been there and now you've come to be a great success and a role model. Do you get involved in that at all? Obviously not at your old school, but elsewhere.
Yeah, I do. So I've done I did some work with the football club they obviously are a youth program that they have a couple actually that they're working on, but I've done one with them so far. Spoke to a bunch of kids. They were more so just kind of normal kids, and it was more so just a chat to kind of get them to look more about the future and things like that. But I also do some bits with a foundation and organisation called Positive Futures, which was actually a program I was in as a kid. So they're I don't know how best to explain it. They're a program for kind of naughty kids, quote unquote. They try and keep them away from just running around and being unruly on the streets or whatever else. That I try give them programs and things to do. Even as, like, I remember when I was in it, we were doing things like just playing football, and there was a few mentors there who would keep you occupied and give you other little bits to do. So that's something I help out with. They come to my gym a lot as well. They do classes up the gym, some of the kids and things like that. So it's something I'm integrated in. That's probably something that's a bit closer to me because I've gone through it, I've seen it, I've been a part of it.
When were you part of that? Was it after GCSEs or what's the time?
During school, yeah,
right.
During school.
Okay.
So it did its part to help me. Don't get me wrong, it didn't perfect me, but it definitely did its part to help me and keep me on somewhat of a straight and narrow. Like the guy Terry who does a lot of the sessions and runs a big part of it. He was there when I was a kid, and he's still there now doing it. I mean, it's funny that I've grown up now into this and whatever I am, and it's funny to sit with, like, I remember being a kid and him kind of sit me down, talking to me, trying to mentor me and whatever else, and then now I'll come back to him however many years later, and I am who I am now, and it's nice to kind of be on the other side of it and sit there and just have a talk with him like I thought it's funny though, because I always still feel a bit like a kid whenever I speak to him. I still feel a bit like...
Yeah. Did you ever see the thing with Ian Wright, with his his school teacher?
Yeah, I did.
When he met him, and that's unbelievable.
Yeah.
We're all the same, aren't we? The teachers from school that I always worked hardest for the teachers that I liked.
That you got on well with, yeah.
Yeah, but the ones that were shouting at me and things like that, all you do all lesson is just try and wind them up, so they'd shout at you. But the ones you actually got on and get, like, mutual respect. And I do think that transpires into future business. And I've tried to manage my staff in that way of, respect and friendly and empowering them. And there's so much to be taken from your school days, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. There's loads. It was school was a funny one for me because I'd never even say that I didn't enjoy it. I did. I love school. If someone said, "Do you want to go back?" I'd always say, "Yeah." I love school.
My son's 16 now, and it's like I can just hear exactly what my dad used to say to me was, "Best years of your life." And at the time, you're like, "Really?
What are you on about?" Yeah,
exactly. And they're playing cricket. They're dossing around with their mates. Doing all these sort of things, and I'd give anything to go back to that.
But as you said, you're at school and you wanted to wear a suit and go to work. Now,
it's funny, isn't it? It's funny how what you always look further and go, oh no, I want this, and then I've realised it a few times over that I've got to the point of where I thought, oh, that's what I want, and then I've got there and actually looked around and gone, this isn't for me. This is. I had some different views, some different thought process about what this was. This is not actually. This doesn't fit with me.
So I was just going to say, just how we got connected in the first place was through the football club, wasn't it? And actually, I was on a train to London, wasn't I? And I was looking through Twitter, and you'd just been involved in the launch of the kit launch. And I just thought, like, well, I'll send you a message, see if there was any sponsorship opportunities for the boxing, and then the rest is history. Obviously, we've become friends.
I've been able to get rid of you since.
Yeah, exactly. But just on the football club, you've been a big town fan all your life, haven't you?
Yeah, well, like I said, I was in the academy as a kid, and I went to games. Went to games as a kid, and my old man is a massive town fan as well.
Where did you sit or stand when you were a kid?
We didn't have season tickets. We just sat all over, just wherever. Sometimes we'd go with his mates, and sometimes it'd just be us, and sometimes I'd just go with my mates and things like that. It would be a bit kind of here, there, and everywhere. But so the club has been something that I was in the academy and things like that. There was different bits of me that have always been attached to the club. So when they came back around, but when they came around and asked me to do the kit launch and stuff, that was like really like I was really buzzing to do like be involved or have like a part in that, and to where it's gone as well, to like there's posters of me around the stadium, there's a big one on the outside of me and things in the kit and stuff, and I'm a bit, even now whenever I go past it, it's all very weird and surreal to see, because then where my picture is, I remember going through those massive double gates as a kid, because they used to have training sessions on there, on that Astro in the evenings. So I remember walking through them gates as like a 10-year-old, going to do my training sessions on there. And then now when I go through that gate, there's a massive picture of my head stamped on the wall next to it. So it's a really weird, like almost full circle kind of feeling that, like if someone would have said to you, like when you was a kid, oh, by the way, you're going to have a massive poster of yourself on the club, you're going to do this for the club, do that, blah, blah, blah. I'd been like, yeah, no worries. So it's something I'm very thankful for. Like I say, the club's very close to my heart, something I care about a lot. So this season as well has been...
You got to know the players quite well, because you're on the pitch for the end of season promotion party, I noticed.
Yeah.
Having a pretend boxing match with...
there's a few of them. That's the thing with everyone. When they see me, they want to run up to me and start throwing punches. I'm like, calm down, lads.
I used to work in the local papers back in the 80s and 90s, and people like Henry Cooper, ex-British world champ, were on the circuit opening fates and opening supermarkets, and every photograph, photographer said, well, can you hold your, can you pose like that every single time? So you're going to have that for the rest of your life, aren't you?
It's attached to me, it's all right though, I don't mind it so much. But
say that, we'll probably have a picture taken with you shortly, and
it'll be the same thing.
But what a year it's been for us as Ipswich fans. Massive year. I think we're only just recovering from it, Simon, aren't we? Just
This is the first pint I've had since we've got promoted.
That's a total lie.
Yeah, I was going to say. Somehow I don't believe that, but
yeah, I mean you've had the misfortune of sitting next to me at a few games, haven't you?
More times than I would have liked, but yeah. It's great because, like I say, I've got a great relationship with the club, as do you. So it's good to have people to go with as well, and like different people to go with, and sit next to you is an absolute workout in itself. So if I skip going to the gym, it's all right that day. As long as I'm going to football with you in the evening, it's just dodging and moving and flying around all the time. He's kicking every ball and heading every ball and sliding all over the place, doing tackles and that. But it's it's brilliant. But it's nice to go to the game to someone who's who you can tell cares so much, loves it so much, and just wants to see the boys and everyone do well and share the same passion for it as you do. I'm not as flying around all over the place. I'm a bit more stoic.
I think
compared to you.
Sad is the word you're looking for.
Yeah. I don't want to say it, but
it's exciting times for the club and for the town. Obviously, there's the football club on the up. Ed Sheeran is the kit sponsor and the shirt sponsor. I mean, there's a lot to be grateful for as an Ipswich fan.
Yeah, massively, and I think it's a bit of a credit to us as a little old town that we've got a few key areas where we're doing pretty well in, and we've all very much either doubled down in them areas or we're all incorporating each other. Like Ed Sheeran's doing his bit for the club's doing their bit for me. Yeah. I'm not doing anything for Ed, but
yet.
But it's like I said, it's a bit of a testament to the town as well that everyone's always looking out for the other person, kind of things. Like I've like really small things. Like there's been times where like I've needed like silly things like a new tyre for my car, or a new MOT, or actually one time I remember that I went to London and my car windows got smashed. And
wasn't that bloke and his dad?
No. Well, I never found out I did it, so maybe. But so I needed some new windows, and I went to a place in town, and someone said to me like, "Oh, don't worry, we'll sort them for you because like the town looks after its own kind of thing. We'll help you out and we'll sort you out." And I've had that a few times where people are just like, "No, we want to help you because of what not what you're doing for the town, but everyone wants to look after their own kind of thing. You're a town boy, I'm a town boy. We all want to look after each other and kind of help the next person on."
I do think people underestimate how much difference a successful football club makes to the town. You know, Ipswich is back on the map a little bit now with Ed Sheeran, with yourself, and the football club. You know, and the money that generates into the actual town. I mean, you've only got to come in here on a Saturday now.
You did, didn't you?
Exactly. Yeah,
but you can't move.
Yeah. But 2 years ago, we could turn up at 1:30 for a pint. Now I've got to come at 12. Yeah.
What a terrible.
Oh no!
You know, I've got to get a seat, haven't I? You know, but it's brilliant. But all that money, it's not money that comes from the away fans. It's from Stowmarket, Framling, and Bury, Colchester. But that all comes into Ipswich, which can only be a benefit. You know, it's really exciting times to be.
Yeah, it is. It's massive.
So time is running on, but I want to come back to boxing very briefly, finally, to say, if we sat down with you in 5 years' time, will you be telling us about your world title success?
I'll be retired, with my feet up. No, I would by a 5-year mark. I should hope so. Probably, it's a goal I want to achieve probably within about 3 years or so. Boxing's a funny one because it's not like football or any other sports where everything's really kind of to a rigid schedule. Like you football, you play 1 week, you play the next, It's all scheduled, booked in, and there's no way a team can really cop out of anything either. They can't go, oh, we don't fancy playing this week, we'll maybe do it another time. That's not a way. That's just not how football works. It's all very rigid, solid structure, has to be done by when it's said. Whereas with boxing, it's a little bit different. It's all very kind of on a whim, on everyone's feeling, if they're feeling up for it, if they're not, if they want to do it, if they don't. And then even then, if the two fighters do, there's a lot of people behind each person that says, oh no, I don't think that's a good idea for you, I don't think we should do that. Whether it be their manager, their promoter, even their broadcaster might say, no, we don't really want to do that. I've gone for a recent experience like that, where I was supposed to have a massive fight that was gone to something called purse bids. And it looked like we were going to win the purse bid, so the opponent's team just dropped out and just said, "No, we want nothing to do with it now," which is mental because you'd think in any other sport that's not a thing. Like once you're tied into something, you have to see it through to the end. But with boxing, that's not the case in a lot of situations. So
with boxing, you're only as good as your last fight as well, aren't you?
Yeah, there is that. There is that kind of. There's a few caveats to that, but there is that kind of feeling to it as well. Especially if you're coming off a loss, it's a bit of a reset button. So you have to kind of
go back up the ladder.
Yeah, start. It's like snakes and ladders, and you've hit a snake and you've gone down 3 or 4 levels, and you have to kind of slowly build your way back up again. So with that being my goal, it's also a funny time scale to put on it because I don't know how things are going to turn out. Like even with boxing at the moment, especially with heavyweight boxing, things have sat very stagnant for a long time, with those world titles being tied up between either 2 or 3 people and them just kind of round robin and circling around each other, either fighting or not fighting, which is even worse because they build towards it and then go, actually, oh no, we're not going to do it, and we're just going to do something
I'm always
else.
amazed at how complicated it is just to set up a fight.
Yeah.
Because you've got the promoters, you've got the zone or BT and things like that, and we can't do this because of that, and it's just like everyone wants to see the fight, but there's so many things to go through just to get it on.
That is the problem with it, is that, like I say, everyone's got their finger in the pie in terms of a fighter. Like everyone's got a manager, a promoter, a broadcaster. So, and then not only do you have those things, your opponent has those things. Yeah. So it's about 8 entities that all need to be on the same page in agreement.
If you're in so if you're both with Matchroom,
that's a lot easier to make.
Yeah.
A lot easier to make if we're both on the same under the same banner, or if 9 times out of 10, if you're from a promoter, broadcaster, whatever, that's from overseas, the biggest conflict is the broadcasting issues. That because a promoter and a broadcaster have invested in you as a fighter or me, so they don't want to relinquish that investment to another broadcaster. So if it's like, if I've got an opportunity to fight on a different broadcaster for a world title or for a belt or things like that, they're going to be more reluctant to say yes to that because they're sending customers, views, whatever, somewhere else to a competitor, basically. Yeah. Which is which is a harder thing for them to stomach. No, don't get me wrong, my promotion company has done it quite a few times, and it's not something they're massively against, because they'll view that, okay, well, if you do that, win and come through, then it's better for you over on this side. But other promoters and broadcasters don't always have that same opinion.
Yeah.
They see it more of a risk versus than a reward. So that's where a lot of things can get shut down. And then boxing's full of egos as well. So we're all very egotistical people. So we all we all have our own set of demands, and we want this, we want that, and we want this, we want that. And if I don't get what I want, then the fight's not happen. And well, fine, then I don't care. I'll do this, I'll do that. And it all gets very puffed up very quickly when there's a bit of kind of back and forth about, even silly things that it's not an argument I've ever had, but people argue about whose name goes first on the poster, things like that, who's going to walk into the ring first, things like that. Like, it's all very minor stuff, but because boxing's such an ego thing, it's all little mini wins over the other person. My name's ahead of you, and I'm being announced as the home team, and blah, 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 blah. And they're all very small things, but they're all little things that boxers think, I've won that one, and everything else. It's all to boost them going into the fight. So it's there's a lot of strings to it, which can be very irritating, but when they do come off, it can be very good.
Well, I know we're finishing up now, and we have a question that we ask at the end of every podcast, but the one question I'd really like to know is, in your opinion, right, and you can't say draw, who would win in a scrap out of me and Simon?
Simon. He's got the height and reach on
That's
you.
bullshit, because I've got loads of special moves.
Everyone's got the height and reach on you.
Special move is running like Forrest Gump that way.
No, I'm dirty.
Okay, I go in all the time.
Chew his ankles, chew on his knees.
Maybe, we'll do it for charity. No, we
We
won't.
can set you up. We'll get you down the gym. I'll get you in a hedge guard, get you some gloves
You
and
wouldn't have
that.
any shorts big enough for me to get into like that.
If I can fit in some, you can get in some. We'll get you. We'll find you something, man.
So then the final question, which we want to ask every podcast, is if you could describe yourself on your epitaph, so on your gravestone, in as little words as possible, what would you say?
I don't know.
So Terry,
If I could
who was on
describe
previous,
myself,
What would your epitaph be?
don't throw a brick through my window.
yeah. You know what's really weird? Is I had this kind of conversation the other day about what would be on your gravestone, but mine was Thank God that's over.
Love it. Well, I hope you don't feel the same way about this podcast, but that is it. Thank you very much indeed. You've been
Cheers,
a great
guys.
guest. Very
Thank
Cheers,
you.
Fabs. Top man.